Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here with Golden Opportunities Coaching. Thank you to those of you who have subscribed recently. Seen a positive growth in subscribers over the last few days and certainly the last few weeks, and we appreciate that. Our next mini goal is 400 subscribers. Maybe we can hit that by the end of August with your help. So if you could send this out to whomever is helpful or you think it would be helpful to in any event. What we do around here is we give practical advice on spiritual, emotional, and coaching-related topics, and we try and do that as often as we can. Today, we're going to talk about something that is super important, and that is insecurity. What are 10 signs you're dealing with an insecure person, or you may be an insecure person yourself? Insecurity is the root cause of a lot of problems for people, emotional issues, issues that leads to substance abuse, issues that leads to breakdown in communication, in relationships, and leads people to be lonely. Insecurity is caused by a whole bunch of big things. And so if we can address that, then we can maybe make things a little easier. So the need to be perfect is one motivating factor for folks who are insecure. Now, this is usually a learned behavior either through an abusive romantic relationship or abusive parent relationship or bullying. One of those three things is at least partially in play for the majority, I'd say 90+% of insecure people, because the idea is that they being fallible, they being imperfect, is unacceptable in the eyes of the people that matter to them most. And so what they learn is they have to perform to be loved, to be valued, and to be valuable. And so the fear of not being perfect, therefore the obsession with becoming perfect, is a motivating factor for a person who really is not wanting to go through that much stress anyway, but they do it in order to feel that they're going to be accepted somewhere down the road. They do it because they believe, hey, in some way, if I do this right, if I get it right, if I solve the riddle, then I will be considered worthy of love or worthy of promotion or worthy of acceptance. And so that is a motivating factor. And the next one is buying into the illusion of competition. And I've talked about the illusion of competition before, so I won't go into great detail here, although I may do a whole audio on it at some point. But the illusion of competition is the operation of the principle that other people care so much about what you're doing that they engage in competing with you, when in reality they're so concerned about being good enough in many cases that they're not competing with you. They're competing with their own inner hardships or inner demons. They're competing with the ideas of what they believe success is, and they're not even taking time to look at you unless you're directly in front of them or you have something they desperately want. Now, that's not to say that people don't become competitive, but the illusion of competition tells us that human beings are a lot more competitive than they actually are. In reality, most people have some insecurity that causes them to think that you're competing with them rather than having the strength to compete with you. So it's kind of one of those things that ultimately is a double-edged sword, because we think it's about other people competing with us, but we're actually competing a lot of times with our own lack of self-belief and getting in our own way. So an insecure person will brag a lot, and that'll sound really uncomfortable, but they'll go and tell the same story over and over again to make sure that they're valuable. They'll brag about what they have financially. They'll be extremely focused on telling their good points over and over, and they may tell them in multiple ways. This is because they don't want their weaknesses exposed. So if they're focusing on their strengths, which in theory is a good thing, except when it's braggadocious, because sooner or later any braggadocious person will grate on the majority of people's nerves sooner or later. And so it's difficult to find that balance between being proud and focusing on the possibilities of what you can do and being really proud of yourself and your advancements, and becoming braggadocious where you're almost obsessed with how people see you. The reality is, again, most people aren't looking at you. They're looking at how you're looking at them the majority of the time. The next thing that an insecure person does is they're easily offended. So easy offense can turn into many things. Now, I'm not saying go out there and insult a person or, be unkind or use vulgarity. But what I'm saying is not everything is about us, right? So if I say, man, I'm really annoyed with people today, and you happen to be a person and you're in the room and you think it's about you, you're offended over your assumption that I'm talking about you when I say I'm annoyed about people. And that's what generally happens with people that are easily offended. They will take a general statement and they will apply it to themselves because they're insecure about being good enough for someone to like them or not get upset with them. And so this leads to the next thing in the list, which is they'll easily offend others. People who are insecure will often say extreme things or things that are maybe socially unacceptable or things that are outside of social normalcy just to fit in. And if they think they can use shock value to get ahead, they'll probably do it just to have a commonality. The problem is if you're playing to the wrong room and you don't know the art of persuasion and you don't know the type of persons that you're in front of, you can actually offend other people pretty easily and then actually burn bridges without even meaning to. An insecure person will either not commit or overcommit. Now, these polar opposites sound like they don't go together, but an insecure person will overcommit to prove they're good enough, to prove they're worthy of love or acceptance, or to be in your group. They'll say they'll always be there, or they'll never be late, or whatever. They'll make those absolute commitments, or they'll never commit. And by never committing, it's, well, we'll see if I feel up to it. And most often, those insecure people that are commitment phobic are also dealing with things like anxiety, depression, maybe social anxiety or issues with how they're seen in their public image. And so they know that in their own mind they're struggling to feel like they fit in and feel like they belong. And so they also realize that that's a moving target. They never really feel completely comfortable. Now, an insecure person, too, will often become a people pleaser. This is what I call overgiver syndrome. And this is where the majority of people end up in unhealthy friendships, relationships, romantically, and social dynamics. It's great to want to help somebody and serve somebody. But when we have the expectation that we're eventually going to get something, even if that expectation is in some way negatively affected by the possibility of the interaction being something that doesn't go the way we intend it to, or ultimately that interaction becomes something that we are uncomfortable with, we ultimately try to please others because we think we're going to gain acceptance or favor or value. And if that doesn't happen, if it goes against that plan, we get more hurt and we become more jaded about social interaction. And a lot of people don't realize how jaded they are over things that happened sometimes 5, 7, 10 years ago when they thought that they'd done enough for a person to gain forever value. And the problem with that is that it's very rare that we meet a person, maybe we meet one person, two people every decade, that are permanent fixtures in our lives. And human beings want to believe that every friendship we make or every relationship we enter is going to last forever. And that can also lead to insecurity, because when that belief is broken 1, 2, 3 or more times, then ultimately we start to think our picker is broken, we start to think we're unworthy of love, and that furthers the feelings of insecurity. The next thing to consider about people pleasing, and there's only 3 more here, is that they used ego boosts for social media. So an insecure person is going to look for ways to feel valid. And for some people, that's likes on Instagram or starting conversations and being a social influencer on Twitter, or how many subscribers we have on YouTube. And I know people are going to say, well, that's hypocritical. You try to get new subscribers. Of course, because I believe that the mission of what I'm trying to accomplish with the channel has value, but at the same time, whether it has 350 subscribers or 350 million subscribers, I'm still going to put in the same quality of work, and I'm still believing that helping one person and then multiplying that by however many I am able to reach is valuable. I don't believe that the metrics of social media or the metrics of how big your email list is or how big your contacts in your phone, how many contacts you have in your phone, really means anything outside of, hey, you had interactions with these people and they gave you some personal information. It's the building of relationships that really matters, whether it's professional or personal or both. And so if you're not building relationships, then really having that contact information becomes irrelevant rather quickly. Insecure people always want what they want when they want it. And so what that means is they tend to be more impatient. They tend to believe the falsehood that I will be happier when, I have the relationship, I get married, I have children, I buy the house. And those are great goals to have. And I'm not teaching against goals or talking against goals here. What I'm saying, though, is when you tie your happiness to achievement and not a state of being that comes from gratitude, eventually you'll be disappointed. There was a story that I heard 10 or 15 years ago when I was studying how the brain worked, and somebody had said that I think it was Buzz Aldrin. It was one of the people that stood on the moon for the first time, came back to Earth, obviously, and immediately had a bout of depression several weeks later. And it's because they had put so much of their self and their self-identity into achieving that goal, in this case, stepping onto the moon, that everything else felt lesser than when they came back, and they had to find a new reason and a new motive. And so the same goes through when we want things excessively. It's great to have goals. It's great to have aspirations, be they for physical things that we can purchase, or be they for professional goals or relational goals. But if you're not taking time to enjoy things, you'll become insecure when the things you think you wanted don't bring you any more feelings of positivity outside of that momentary bump that you get. Yeah, I did it. Okay, now what? The last one that I want to touch on is that the insecure people run from emotional and work, and they run from things that'll force them to grow. Now, this may mean staying in a relationship that's unhealthy. This may mean avoiding going to school because they don't think they're good enough. This may mean something as simple as not asking that girl or guy out because they're afraid of rejection. Look, human existence, especially human relationships, come with the possibility and even in some cases probability of rejection, but that doesn't mean that we should ignore it or not deal with it. It actually means that in reality, if there's a chance of rejection, we can learn how to deal with rejection in a new and healthy way, and that really has value. So hopefully this audio has been helpful to you. Please comment, like, and subscribe, and if there's something we can help with, please feel free to ask, and we'll get an audio up within a couple of days. But until then, keep your feet on the ground, your mind in the moment. Until next time, everybody.